In the dark, cold night of medieval Europe, the streets of Paris were bustling with whispers and skepticism about a fragile peace that many doubted would last. It was a time of knights, chivalry, and brutal warfare, where the lives of common people were often overshadowed by the grand schemes of the nobility. In June 1389, after 6 grueling months of negotiations, a 3-year truce was finally signed, but the air of suspicion lingered, and not everyone was convinced that peace would hold. This is the story of a world where knights like Enguerrand and the 7th de Coucy were both celebrated heroes and symbols of a chivalric code that was increasingly seen as a facade for the brutal realities of war. The truce, while a significant diplomatic achievement, was far from a definitive settlement. It came with intricate provisions for negotiating each transfer of territory or sovereignty in case of disputes. For the common people who had suffered through years of conflict, the news of peace was met with mixed reactions. In the village of Bois Gribaut in the Limousin, a poor, witless shepherd named Marshal Leverett expressed his skepticism. Marshal, who had been held in prison by the English and endured great misery, didn't believe that peace would last. He recalled a prophecy once attributed to Coucy, saying, "Don't you believe it? You will never see peace. As for me, I don't believe it, because the king has destroyed and pillaged Flanders as he did Paris. And what's more, the Seigneur de Coucy brought him a spade and told him that when he had destroyed his country, he would have to use that." This saying resonated with the villagers, who had grown weary of false promises and endless suffering. While the truce brought a temporary respite, it also created new challenges. Enguerrand and the 7th de Coucy, a prominent noble known for his valor and chivalry, was appointed captain of Guyenne to supervise the truce in the south and defend the country from the Dordogne to the sea, including Auvergne and Limousin. Coucy was a man of great stature, respected for his intelligence, prudence, and far-sightedness. He was often described as gentle, subtle, prudent, and imaginative, meaning intelligent, thoughtful, or far-seeing. His reputation as a wise and virtuous leader made him a symbol of the chivalric ideals that many still held dear. However, the chivalric code was not without its critics. Thomas Mowbray, Earl of Nottingham and future Duke of Norfolk, a young man of 23, saw Coucy as the epitome of chivalry and sought to challenge him to a joust. Mowbray, one of the Lords Appellant whom King Richard II was courting, was eager to prove his prowess and gain honor. He challenged Coucy to a joust of 3 points of the lance, 3 of the sword, 3 of the dagger, and 3 blows of the axe on foot. The challenge was grand, but Coucy, perhaps wary of engaging in such a contest while the truce was still pending, did not respond. Mowbray's craving for combat would later lead him to a darker fate, culminating in a historic duel with Bolingbroke that precipitated the downfall of King Richard II. In the midst of these political and military tensions, Jean Froissart, a renowned chronicler, arrived in Paris to visit Coucy. Froissart had been a patron and friend of Coucy's for many years, and their relationship was one of mutual respect and admiration. Froissart, who had traveled extensively and visited other noble patrons, including the Count of Foix and the Pope in Avignon, was eager to share his experiences with Coucy. The two men rode together to Coucy's fief at Mortagny, exchanging news and stories. Coucy, known for his generosity, often provided Froissart with financial support, stuffing his pockets with red-sealed florins. Their conversations covered a wide range of topics, from the truce negotiations to the wedding of the Duke of Berry, which had been a source of much ribald commentary. Froissart's chronicles, which had first appeared in 1370, had become immensely popular, celebrated for their vivid and detailed accounts of chivalric deeds. The oldest extant manuscript of Book I, now in the Royal Library of Belgium, bears the Coucy coat of arms, a testament to the noble's patronage. The rise of a bourgeois audience and the increased manufacture of paper had created a wider reading public, and Froissart's works were in high demand. The chronicles of chivalry had a great vogue, as the magnates and newly rich sought to imitate the manners and ideals of the nobility. The year 1389 was marked by grand ceremonies and celebrations, including the knighting of the young Louis II of Anjou and his younger brother. The 4-day ceremony at the Royal Abbey of St. Denis was a spectacle of opulence and excess, with tournaments, dances, and banquets that pushed the boundaries of chivalric tradition. The young princes, dressed in floor-length, furred mantles of double red silk, were escorted to the altar by squires holding naked swords with golden spurs. The rituals, though elaborate, were seen by some as a nostalgic revival of ancient forms that had already begun to fade into obscurity. The extravagant ceremonies and public entertainments of the time were not without their critics. The monk of St. Denis, for example, was indignant about the libertinage and adultery that accompanied the festivities. Despite the grandeur, the knighting of young boys and the excessive spending on public events raised questions about the values and priorities of the nobility. The government's expenditure continued to mount, with the ceremonial entry of Isabeau of Bavaria into Paris for her coronation as queen being a particularly lavish and costly event. The procession, which advanced along the Rue St. Denis, was a dazzling display of wealth and power, with elaborate decorations and performances that left a lasting impression on the people of Paris. The arrival of Valentina Visconti, the new wife of Louis d'Orléans, added to the spectacle. Her father, Gian Galeazzo, had spared no expense in preparing her for her new role, providing an unprecedented dowry of 500,000 gold francs and a household of luxuries. Valentina, who spoke Latin, French, and German fluently, brought her own books and harp with her to France, but the marriage was marred by a sense of melancholy. The grandeur of the ceremonies could not mask the underlying tensions and uncertainties of the time. In the end, the Truce of 1389, while a significant achievement, was a fragile and temporary peace. The chivalric ideals that many still held dear were increasingly challenged by the harsh realities of war and political intrigue. Coucy, a symbol of chivalry and wisdom, navigated these turbulent waters with a mix of prudence and resolve. The world he inhabited was one of complex loyalties, where the lines between honor and ambition were often blurred. The story of this time is a reminder that even in the most tumultuous of eras, there are always those who strive to uphold the values of courage, wisdom, and integrity.